Hello and welcome to another one of these monthly live things that I've decided to do, talking to Ukrainian teachers of English, hopefully once a month on a Sunday at around this time. I'm going to be talking in a few minutes to, let me just see if I can add her 1 minute. Oh, Natalia, I think you have to ask to be added live. So, yeah, okay, you've done it. Will hopefully be joining us. Give us a second. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome. I'm so happy to see you and an honor to finally meet you live.
Hello,
everyone.
Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Doing fine. I was pretty nervous a bit, but I think everything's going to be okay. And I would like to express again my gratitude for everything you do here. Thank you so much.
You know, I guess if everyone does something, then it do lots of big things. So, you know, everyone tries to do what they can, I guess. I have a piece of paper I was going to just use to introduce you. So I'll just do my brief introductions and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone who's joined, by the way. Thank you very much. So my guest today, as you can see, is, correct me if I'm pronouncing your surname, Natalia. Is it Zachynska? Oh, you've frozen. Frozen at my terrible pronunciation. Am I pronouncing your surname correctly?
Absolutely.
Zachynska.
Pronunciation is great.
And as far as I know, Natalia, you're a Ukrainian. You're a logistics coordinator for an American NGO.
Well, currently, yes. It's just the continuation of my volunteering job. Because since the advent of war, I doubtly thought of continuing my career as teaching and training, but now I'm combining both. Yeah. So even three things together at the same time. So yes.
Okay, and like in your day-to-day life before the full-scale invasion, you're a teacher and a teacher trainer and co-founder of a language school, a language studio. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So before the war, we used to have 4 affiliates and more than 22 teachers hired and working for us. And also, which is very important, we were having language schools and summer schools as well. So yes, and I was honored to be presenting with you on this, not on the same floor, but in nearby auditoriums in Itava, Poland.
Yeah. Hey, so. Do you want to just begin maybe by telling everyone a little bit about yourself, about your family, about how you grew up, about background?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I think that as all Ukrainian teachers, I grew up in Ukraine, and I hold 2 diplomas. One, I'm an interpreter English German, and the second one is international economic relationship, and also like CELTA, IELTS, and so on and so forth. So like a lot of certificates, but I might say that this not which defines me as a teacher. Which defines me as a teacher is just love to what I do every day. So, and my passion is exam prep, and I might say that really it's the I might say the wonderland for every student, because whenever they hear this word, yes, they are terrified. And I kind of say that I put my life on that, but I devoted 10 years to debunking those myths that, in fact, it's not that scary, and to have a proper preparation and to have very simple explanations using lexical approach and many other approaches into showing like how easy it can be, and like brighten that passion in the eyes of students. This is what I actually do, and I really like that I can continue doing that. And I'm seeing here Eva Tatarova, Olga, and a lot of others, teachers who are supporting. I think that each of us and every is doing the same. So we are trying to live in the conditions of war, and at the same time trying to give this peace and maybe serenity to students, which is really important nowadays, because that was the first thing I did. Like on the 24th of February, the war started, and on the 30th of February, not 30th, but the 2nd of March, there isn't 30th of February, we were conducting lessons. And that was shock, but we said that students, our pupils, the youngest and the oldest ones, by the way, who are adults, need to have this, like, routine still. And it saved a lot of things. It changed our approaches to teaching dramatically, but still, it helps us to move on, and I think will help us.
I'm going to come back to the kind of post February bit in a minute. In terms of like you, whereabouts did you grow up? Where was home when you were a kid?
Well, that was Khmelnytskyi, where like that's the city which is central west of Ukraine. So we are this dramatic mix of Ukrainians, Poles, Jewish people, and Russians as well. So like a melting pot, because no one ever can distinguish where we are. Totally Western Ukraine, a central one. We are the boundaries. Yes, and
where the north and the south begin. It like depends who you ask. Yeah.
Definitely. So, because as for north, we're very close to the north, but as for south, the same. So the thing is that we are the only region in Ukraine which has no direct borders with other countries.
Okay.
So, but logistically, it's absolutely very close for us to get to any point in Ukraine. So we are this dreamland. Whenever you want to travel from Khmelnytskyi, this is the best place to start.
And are you still in Khmelnytskyi now, or have you moved now?
Yes.
You're still there?
I'm here now. Even now.
Always been home for you, yeah?
Yes, it's always been home for me. I've moved, like I might say lived, but I stayed in States for 6 months, like 10 years ago, and traveled a lot, but I have never thought of changing my home place. So Khmelnytskyi, this is my hometown, my dreamland, and I might say my motherland as well.
Okay, okay. And when did you first start kind of getting into English? What was your route into English as a language and then English language teaching? How did that happen?
Oh, Hugh, that's a tough question, to be honest, because I've been always dreaming of becoming, like I dreamt of becoming either a lawyer or working at some kind of international multinational company and running some kind of a very, very serious department on financing. So that's why I have like diploma at international business relationship. And English was just, I don't know, it's always been there with me. So my mom, she assigned me to extracurricular classes before I even started school, but I started school when I was 5. Like I was a little bit of a prodigy, I might say. I don't know, like, but it happened. And then that was school with intensive learning of English.
You usually train, yeah?
I'm sorry?
It would usually be what 7 to start school in Ukraine?
Yeah, it would usually be 6.5 and 7. Like I was normal age, and I was 5.5 then. Okay. I was the youngest at school, the youngest at university, and the youngest person who started language school in Khmelnytskyi in my region, in my years, and also one of the youngest speakers and trainers in Ukraine. So I really like that. Like, but that wasn't the purpose I was, I might say, aiming at. I was just doing whatever I like, and till 18, I was just like eager English lover. I was very happy, and I was blessed, to be honest, with teachers. So they really showed me how you can love the subject. And
that were driving enthusiasm for English, or was there cultural stuff that you were interested in as well, connected to English, or was it?
Yeah. Well, the school which I was actually doing was specialist schools. A school was intensive learning of English, and besides English, we had country studying. We had different types of interpreting and translation back then, even technical and like cultural aspects of English. There was culturology, something like that. The subject was called. Also, the teachers who were teaching us, they actually brought a lot of native speakers to our school. And that is the thing, that there were not like speaking club as it's like a speaking club, but that was, I might say, sharing with their family, diving into their life. We were making a lot of project-based learning was back then in my school. And I really liked that. Like TBL, every single Friday. So we were just talking, and even the like students, I kind of said like who were not that skilled in any other subject, they really adored those lessons. And then at university, the same. So we had like not only business English for the sake of business English. The teachers who were there, like and lecturers, they were like putting us into the shoes, I might say, of an English-speaking person, like a native speaker. They showed peculiarities of saying like maybe. So yes, maybe in Ukrainian context means rather yes than no. But in English speaking and British, it's rather no
Yeah,
than yes.
yeah, yeah.
And we were practicing a lot of those tiny little peculiarities, connotations, context differences, and that was amazing. So,
And how did you go from wanting to run an international organisation to become a language teacher? What happened?
well, that was my mom, to be honest. I can blame her for that because I came back from States and I was then the undergraduate. Like I was the student of year 3, I guess. And she said like, I have a friend. Can you help her with English, like her son? And that was my first student because I said like, I have no idea about teaching. And I'm very like, this structural, brain-oriented person, very logical one and analytical one. That is the reason I like tests, because they're very straightforward and you need to find this logical connections between everything, like reasoning. And I was like, I can do that. And she's like, just give it a try. So I tried, and then again tried, and then I started like looking for methodology because my granny used to be a teacher for 40 years, and she was my first advisor and everything. So I just asked her about all of these tiny little things, classroom management, because like teaching phonics, I might say that that is something horribly crazy difficult. Really, it's just, especially for me who has never worked with kids. And since then, student by student, like, word of mouth. And when I was 20, I had like a list of waiting lists for a half a year. Though I was doing my day, like full-time university program, and that was completely nothing about teaching. It was about business management. And then I said, like, why shouldn't I combine both of that? So I started my first language school when I was 20. 21.
Wow.
Yes, it wasn't a school. Like that was like two study rooms, and there was the third one, which we in fact couldn't afford to rent because like it was really high. And eventually, in 10 years, ended up an Cambridge exams prep center and teacher training and IELTS and like instructing and preparation for exams center.
So
And I really love it.
up on you without you realizing that's where you were heading in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just
Some English teachers sort of accidentally without really planning to,
that's
start
true.
doing a little bit and think, oh, this is good, and then continue. Yeah. I mean, that was the case with me as well. I
Really
never set out to become an teacher, just ended up accidentally drifting into it and then falling in love with it.
becoming a rock star of English, definitely. That was just
It's kind of lucky accident, really. Yeah. And so, kind of thinking about when you were growing up, when did you first become aware of politics? I mean, was there some kind of like political moment for you where you started realizing that politics was going on around you? Was there some kind of one moment of awakening, or was it more gradual, or what?
Thank you for the question. In fact, that was, well, my background, my granny started that. She used to be like a teacher of Ukrainian language and literature, Russian language and literature. She had like 2 higher educations. The problem was, since that those times that she was half Jews and how Jew and how Polish. And the region where I grew, we are very like European oriented, always been. And in my family, there's, I might say, sense of respect to everyone, opposing to everything post-Soviet. And growing up as the real person, it was just like, I think I just suck it with the mom's milk, really. And my granny always, though she used to be a teacher at Soviet times, always made her students think. So even she raised me this way. She always said, like, whatever you do, always think of positive and negative side of everything, and always be very objective to everything. Always ask why. And this is how I teach my students, by the way. That's her lesson. So I think, like, everything I say, everything which I tell you, do not take it for granted and for absolute truth. Always ask why. And this is the same about politics. In our country, since you are into Ukrainian question, into war question, you've already heard a lot of stories of different teachers from different regions. In my particular case, we were always pro-Ukrainian. It's not even pro-Ukrainian, this has been identically Ukrainian. But at the same time, we have never, ever even had any thought of humiliating or having a disguise or any other negative emotions to anyone Russian-speaking Russians. Like my mom-in-law, she speaks Russian, purely Russian with a beautiful language. And this is how we were grown. Like, though in my family we spoke and speak like Polish because I'm Catholic. My granny's half used to be, unfortunately she died, passed away, was half Polish. Half of my family is Polish as well. We are always multilingual, and it has always been the matter of pride, rather than, like, saying, oh, this language is good or bad. No, language, this is the means of communication. And this is when my son asks me, why now Russian is that bad? And I say, honey, when language becomes the tool of propaganda, language is becoming a weapon, and that's horrible, because in fact language itself is always beautiful. And political, since like I was born in 1990, and I saw how my mom works hard, how my father lost his job, how everyone was, like, asking for something better from government, and we realized, like, nothing can happen if you can do nothing. If you sit and patiently wait, nothing will happen. So all of the Maidans, all of the revolutions, all of, like, support of people who were in pain, who were suffering, 2014, when Donetsk and Luhansk, that's horrible war, started not in 2022. It started way back earlier, and we were helping and are helping and will be helping. And this is not, like, again, a very important thing. That's nothing which is highlighted on social media and networking, because a lot of people are not boasting with that. It's always been like that. It's just like your position. You have to help, and we are one country. And this is what always been in my family. And unfortunately, in Ukraine, I might say even till now, we had a lot of pro-Russian, not even pro-Russian, pro-Moscow governed people, and that was horrible. Politics, people in power, men in power, right? They were not thinking about Ukraine. And Ukrainians by nature, we are not hostile. We are very patient, and we're very tolerant. And that's the problem. We can tolerate everything. And it's true, because there is no, like, this gene of anger in us. It's like, I must say, it's absolutely artificial for us. And this is what we are having now, like, in fact, in continuous, the thing which we were tolerating for many generations. And unfortunately, not everyone was lucky to be raised like me in the family, who explained me, who gave me to read books which were prohibited, like literature, like 1984, like the co-host, like everything by those writers who actually, like, predicted what's going to happen in future. And I'm very glad that I was grown in that kind of, I might say, society and surrounding.
Wow. I had about 10 thoughts I was listening to you talking, and I think for me, it took me a long time traveling kind of in Russia and in Kazakhstan and in Belarus and in Ukraine and in the kind of post-Soviet world to really understand how differently countries that weren't Russia processed the memory of the Soviet Union, you know, and how in a lot of countries that had been kind of under the Soviet Union, there was very much this kind of decolonizing process going on already, this kind of anti-Soviet going on, this desire to kind of move towards a different post-Soviet future. I think looking back within Russia itself, there were obviously some people who also wanted that, yeah. But I think as a kind of government, when you're run by FSB, ex-KGB people, inevitably there's that kind of nostalgia for the grand era of empire and everything. And so I was thinking about that, and I was also just thinking about the language thing, where quite a lot of my Ukrainian friends and Ukrainian teachers I know who come from Russian-speaking families, since February 24th, they've basically completely stopped speaking Russian. They've won't talk Russian to anyone. They've switched completely to Ukraine. Even for some people who it's not as natural, or it's not possible for them to be in Ukrainian all the time. I know a lot of people have made that choice. And I know that's also happening, like in Kazakhstan, for example. I follow a lot of Kazakhs on social media, and I know there's this huge thing happening in Kazakhstan of, we're Kazakhs, we speak Kazakh. And kind of ethnic Russians who've been in Kazakhstan a long time, starting to switch more to speaking Kazakh, to distinguish themselves from the new people who've come in. And so, I mean, I think there's a kind of, one of the many grim ironies of the war is the fact that the war accelerated that whole process of promoting Ukrainian as a language, promoting Kazakh as a language, promoting all these different post-Soviet identities and post-languages. And I was also thinking just what you said about 2014, because I think I'm definitely aware of the fact I was guilty of not fully understanding the importance of what had happened in 2014. And I think, like a lot of people in Western Europe, we were complacent about it and we didn't fully understand what was happening. I mean, I was still going to Russia after 2014, right up until 2019. And I was aware from being in Russia that what was happening in Donbass was being used for propaganda purposes. I could be like, you'd be in a Russian hotel and I would be watching TV and they'd be showing endless reruns of movies from the Great Patriotic War. And then it would come to news about Ukraine, and then it would go back to the Great Patriotic War. And I was like, yeah, you know, I understand what you're trying to do here. I understand you're trying to tell me it's the same thing. But I think I didn't understand where that came, and I didn't understand that this was a conscious thing that the government were doing to soften people's brains in order to persuade them a full-scale invasion was necessary. And, you know, maybe also that people in Ukraine understand that's where that was going as well, you know. And I think there's a lot of people in Russia who didn't quite understand that's where that was headed as well. And now I look back at it and I'm like, how did I not notice that? How could I not have seen that, you know?
Well, I might say that a lot of people are still like not aware of why it actually happened. But the problem is now that the generation of those kids and teenagers who are growing up now in Russia, they think that this is their same duty now to fight with Ukrainians because they are having losses, the same as we do. And now, like, it's their blood vendetta, like it's going to be vendetta, because they will not think of why everything happened, but they will obviously know that they need to pay back. And for example, being a mom of 9-year-old son, I do realize that it won't even stop when we actually win, because like this, not a connection, but a relationship with neighboring country, which is obviously the biggest country in the world, could have been absolutely different. the other hand,
You're looking.
oh,
Go on,
yes.
go on, Natalia. Sorry.
Oh, no, like, I mean that it's very painful to think. That's the problem. I always keep saying that it's very painful to think and analyze. It's better to take everything for granted and to say like, oh, someone knows better. No, there isn't someone who knows better than you do. And don't blame yourself that you didn't know everything. We didn't know everything. We know everything because like now we may say that we are not blind because we allowed ourselves to be manipulated.
Yeah.
We also allowed ourselves blindly like support that artificial connection with the nations and believe that we are some kind of a brotherhood nation, because again we were also influenced by that.
Yeah.
Another thing is that unlike Russians, we are a very free-willed country and nation, and we are not the same. And it was obviously demonstrated in 1991, in 2003, in 2014, in 2022, in many other cases when we were opposing. We don't like something, we go and change. It's very romantic because we change it and again we leave it. Like, wow, okay, we changed. We were united when we had a common enemy. And then, okay, let's start. But this is the nature of Ukrainians. At least it used to be like that.
One of my friends was saying the other day that the Maidan is never finished.
Yes.
You know, and
it's true.
I like that idea. And I notice it a lot in the Ukrainians I work with and the Ukrainians I'm in contact with. Seems to be a very strong feeling of the power of the individual to bring about change, and a sort of belief that by doing little things, individuals can be part of a much bigger thing. And
absolutely,
for me, that's a very powerful, very important kind of idea, because that's the kind of fundamental root of democracy. That's the fundamental root of being a citizen, you know, and that's the fundamental root of being responsible for what happens in your country, what your country does, you know.
Absolutely. And this is important because for us, it's not natural and to think that, not to think that to hear from Russians that we cannot change anything. No, you actually can.
It's a very rooted feeling. And, you know, there's part of me where I understand that, because I do know how extreme the punishments are, and I know how extreme the way that 25 years of Putin has created a system which is very, very, very repressive.
It's true.
You know, but in the end, they're going to come for your children. They're going to come for your husbands. They're going to come for, you know, at some point you have to decide, you're going to just let all this happen, or are you going to actually try and fight the system at some point?
Yeah. The other thing is that the problem of their society is that we were not afraid even to be shot on Maidan. We were not afraid to lose our lives and to put our lives for not its higher mission. No, it's for today's mission. It's for getting better life conditions today, but not in like some kind of miraculous 100 years. No. And that is the moment then when you are a country of 140 million people, obviously there are not enough prisons. There are not enough people in power, men in power who can actually do something to you. And that's horrible when, you know, this mindset which you have cracks and you actually understand how powerful you are. And they lack it. Because they were not even taught how to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's funny to me hearing it, because I'm looking at France this last week, where in France they're raising the pension age to 64, and France already gets double the pension that we get, and the French are much better at reacting to this and fighting for their rights than we are. So in England, the pension age is already 67, and we get the pension that the French get. The French, when there are changes to their system, they go out in the streets and they burn down town halls. You know,
I've seen the pictures today, and that was just like
no fucking around with the French. It's just like, no, keep
the thing is,
and as an English person, I kind of feel like we've lost a little bit of that in England, or maybe we never had it, because what we do is we go to the pub, we moan about it and make jokes about it, and then we kind of accept it. And I think this is why the French have a lower age of retirement and a higher pension, and we have a higher age of retirement and a lower pension, because they fight for that stuff more. And it's important to do that, because, you know, you see what happens to your rights if you don't fight for them. I worry about it with my own country, you know, I really do.
I do understand, and that is the moment then, whether you put your like foot down and say no, and then government will, like, the thing is that I'm very happy that I have like two diplomas. That one I had like there was one great lecturer I had, and he always said there was a conflictology, like, and it's prevention of conflicts. It's politology, and then you have some other like subjects to learn. And he always said that government and anyone can rule you and tell you what to do exactly by the moment you say stop.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And he says, like, he used to say that the main not the reason, but the main merit of democracy is not to forget that democracy, this is the voice of people, of nation, because demos.
Yeah.
And everyone who works at like in government, they are actually your employees, and you are an employer, and always they need to be like, you know, send a short notice about it.
And help.
They always need to be reminded.
Yeah. So can I just rewind a bit, Natalia? Can I go back to 2014 and just sort of ask you a little bit about what your memories of 2014 were, and what it kind of meant for you at the time, and how it impacted you?
Well, to be honest, I used to have, and I still have, a lot of friends in Donetsk and Luhansk, and they are now unfortunately not temporarily displaced. Some of those are temporarily displaced twice. Yeah. And like a family of my husband, they run business, and they are people of, I might say, of craft. So they trade a lot. And that is the reason we had a lot of trading connections with them. And that's the moment when these people who used to have absolutely luxurious, very prosperous businesses, they lost everything, because usually these are the first ones who came after. And they lost everything once in 2014, and we were very afraid for their lives, because some of those were exactly in Donetsk. Some of those were like based in Luhansk. Also, I have a friend, but I got to know her a bit later, in Kramatorsk, and many other cities and towns, and they lost once everything. And then they moved to Dnipro and Kyiv and Bursa and Irpin, that built houses. They started on their businesses again, and unfortunately they lost everything again. So, and I remember when in 2014 I had my son, and he was only, how much he was? He was a year. And my husband said, like, okay, I'm gonna go and join, and I'm gonna go to the east of the country. And to be honest, I won't be lying that I was proud of him. I was petrified, because I couldn't imagine, like, how, like, everyone was waiting till the end, like that wouldn't, like, that's not happening, about annexation of Crimea. And different, like my brother, like, he's my cousin. Back then he was a chief of border guard unit in Crimea, and he was ordered just to surrender, and that was horrible. And then he was transferred to Alevaisk, and then this, I might say, massacre happened there, and we had no connection for 48 hours with him. He lost half of his troops. And can you imagine a 32-year-old guy who is 2 meter high? And we finally saw him in 2 weeks. And standing at the train station, he just fell down on the ground, on the pavement, because the train was given the final calls that it departs. So it's very close. So the war for me didn't start in 2022. And for everyone, and here we have Eva Tatarova, I might say that she knows much better than I do what is going on there, because she eyewitnessed that on her own. And a lot of other teachers like that, and their stories are unique. That's the reason I have right to say what I know, but I've never been there before.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Donetsk in 2013. I was there about 9 months before the Russians arrived, and you know, it was great. Just a normal city. It's did a talk for teachers, met people, went out, had a really nice time there. You know, and I was in Crimea in 2012, 2013 as well, and we had a big adoption of my book in university in Sebastopol, and then when the annexation happened, the distributors I was working with lost all the books that they had in Crimea. They lost about £100,000 of stock because it was all in a warehouse in Crimea, and it all just went. So, you know, I mean, yeah. I knew the impact that it had at that time, but yeah, maybe I don't know. I think like a lot of Western Europe, you kind of felt like, well, maybe it'll stop there.
Yeah.
You know, and that was obviously a very naive way. And I think that's why now maybe fewer people are seeing any kind of compromise and like that. Like we've tried that before and we've seen how that worked. You know, that
definitely
doesn't work at all. And where were you when the full-scale invasion happened? What was the first week or first couple of weeks like?
Well, everyone was in two minds, saying, oh no, it won't happen because it's absolutely barbaric in 21st century to have the war in the middle, like in the center of Europe, in fact, right? Like it's just insane. The whole scale invasion, no, like never happening. I was confirmed that the war will start, because I said, like, there's no use of showing like, you know, this strict order or directions of things, how to act when there is a Russian troop coming into your house, like being in public. How to act when some kind of, I don't know, massive attack happens. What to do when air raid goes off. So like it's not just, you know, social media ads. That was all over Ukrainian TV, and also
before the 24th.
Before the 24th, our government was showing that on TV and what to do in case there is no connection, no power, no Wi-Fi, whatever. And everyone was like, it's strange. It's not happening. We don't know exactly. But I remember night before that, on the 23rd of February, I was talking to a close friend of mine, Oksana Vahilsi. She's from Chernihiv, and she runs her very big and absolutely, I might say, state-of-art school of English as well. And we were talking about TKT exam test. You'll be laughing, really, module 1, and we were just like talking because like we were preparing for that. She was preparing for that, and I said, like, Oksana, everything's gonna be okay. If not, I'm gonna give you a call. And she said, like, okay, just give me a call, because tomorrow I'm gonna have an exam, not exam, but a test to take. And if it's not for war. And that was just like her last words. She hang off, and I wake up at 4:31 a.m. in the morning from the call of my friend from Melitopol, that's Zaporizhia region.
Yeah.
And she said, Natalia, we are under rocket attack. Like it started. And at the same time, her husband called my husband, because we are very close friends. And this are the case when people lost everything, because they had their businesses Melitopol, and then they transferred half of it into Khmelnytskyi here, and they lost half of that, like at all. And he also warned my husband, like, wake up, it started, the war has started. And we hear, like, we heard the aircrafts like flying over our house because we live in a cottage at the on the outskirts of the city. So like naturally only like privately owned houses, and that's it. And I was petrified. I was just cold stone, and I understood that I need to call I need to wake up my son. And I'm waking him up with the words like, "Honey, wake up, the war started." And that was the moment. I might say that that's the most horrifying moment in my life. I have never felt like that because I didn't know what to do. Like you don't know exactly what to do at all.
Yeah.
So I started calling all of my friends. I called to Oksana because I know that Chernihiv, so Russians are going from that side, and they are very close. I called my friends to Kharkiv because they are 30 kilometers away from the Russian border, and I heard like I'm calling them, and I hear like in my phone that there are already explosions, and I cannot understand. I cannot distinguish anything.
Yeah.
Then I called to my friends who work in military and asking what to do. And they said like, okay, pack your stuff for several days, withdraw all the money you have, and you cannot withdraw anything, everything's blocked.
Yeah.
So in the morning of the 24th, we were on the phone call and hosting everyone who was fleeing already. So my house turned into condominium, but that was the least I could. That's okay, absolutely. I was luckier to be born in the center of the country rather than from those areas who were fleeing. And a friend of mine's house, which was absolutely opposite mine, for half a year there were from 25 to 17 people living.
Yeah.
So and that was Khmelnytskyi like. We turned out into a real estate company who was just looking for places where to stay. We lived at train stations by providing food for those evacuation trains who were coming. Especially a lot of those were just stopping for 5 minutes, and we just gave them food. Just food, something warm, and took off like wounded and injured. And that was the 24th. We were constantly on the phone. We were only watching news because we don't know what to do. I was very happy, and I was called by many people who were telling, okay, just flee the country, go. I said like, I cannot go. How can I go? Like, where to? Like, what to do when one day you go back to bed and you are a business owner and you have like plans ahead for many years.
Yeah.
Everything's great, and now you know that you have 22 people waiting for you to tell them what to do. So on the 24th in the morning, I was paying them salary. I said like, you need to have it, and you need this money. And that was the moment what we were doing, buying mats, hosting people, paying salary, and saying that everything's going to be okay. Because besides being a person, I was a business owner as well. I couldn't just let them down and say, okay, no.
It's still very close to you, and I can see it's still very painful. So I'm sorry to ask.
No, that's fine.
And Khmelnytskyi itself has generally been unaffected so far, directly affected in terms of the city, or not?
Well, we have no, in comparison to eastern part of Ukraine and northern and southern part, I might say we are very relatively safe. We have rockets shelling, we have missiles shelling, we have drones attacks, but it's not that often. And to be honest, there is nothing to complain in comparison to everyone else. We had problems with power outages a lot because our nuclear power station was attacked several times severely. And in Khmelnytskyi it was the same because we are this transportation route of electricity.
Okay.
And that was the moment when we were affected. Many other regions who depend on us were affected as well. So we had power outages for a day or two, 3, but we bought generators. Yes, we got accustomed, and it's not that scary as all of other people have undergone through. So
yeah. And so, in terms of the last year, I'll talk about your volunteer work in a minute, but how has the last year affected your teaching? What's changed? What's been the most difficult thing for you with your teaching?
Context changed.
Yeah. I hear.
I might say that emotionally was difficult.
Yeah.
Because I started volunteering a lot, and to be honest, I was so empty to give something at the lessons. It's very important to remember that we teachers are very sensible, it's true, but sensitive. So when we are sensible here, it doesn't mean that we don't feel anything. And when we see students, and I see students who were in Kiev, and the topic is your summer vacation, really? Like, you cannot talk about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have to change the context.
Yeah.
Which is really important, and I've already said, like, to Alistair on his interview, that's the moment when we have to teach uncomfortable topics. And it's very important to understand that you are still a mediator at the lesson, but not teaching your own and personal view on the situation, because you never know what is the background of your learners are. Even though you've been teaching them for 5 years or 10, it doesn't mean that you know what's going on in their family, whether their father is already at the front line, or maybe he is desperately against the war.
Yeah.
Always, like, there are always those people. Or, for example, his friend was killed. I had a situation when at the lesson I had a call, and one of my students, who was a student of Kyiv National University, was shot down, like, because Russians, like, that was a story which is not told here, but nevertheless, and you have to deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
And a lot of other students, friends were either missing, or they were in Bucha in captivity. Some of those had undergone, like, horrible things. And I was volunteering mission. I might say that I stood back from teaching for half a year. I just couldn't go to lessons. And but when you come back, you have to explain that words matter, context matter, lexical range which you use matter. Because again, when you say about invasion and you talk about full-scale war, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that he was wounded, okay, but if you show the difference between penetrating wound or, I don't know, gunshot wound, it's different. Mm-hmm. When they say it's awkward topic to talk, but rape is not an awkward topic to talk. Yes, when we talk about homicide, students need to understand the difference between mass killing and homicide as well. And also the context of international news. How everyone was first very cautious about naming things with their real names, because again, we need to be politically correct. Mm. And it's also important when students are affected by that. Especially, I work with like B2, B1 plus, C1 level students, and they understand the difference. When in use, it said, the situation is really difficult. They do not say what kind of situation. They don't use strong adjectives to describe it because it's not politically correct. Yeah. And you also need to explain them. A lot of students moved abroad. And they are constantly asked, and they were asked questions about where are you from, how's the situation there. And if you say like it's war, it will say nothing. But when you provide them with this language and vocabulary, it's very painful because it's absolutely 100% directed into them, and that's a problem. And awkward topics.
Many years ago, I taught a South Korean woman, and her husband had been killed in a racist attack in London.
Oh my God.
Week in London, her husband was attacked and killed by these guys. And I was teaching her. I was warned by the counsellor of the university that she'd seen her husband killed in front of her, and she was going to find classes difficult. And I got to know her really well. Incredible South Korean woman called Natalia. She'd been part of the student protest movement against the military dictatorship in the. And when I got to know her, I would sort of ask her, look, when we're doing this topic, is this topic okay? Is that topic okay? And she said, look, everything is okay. There is no neutral topic anymore. So if you're talking about movies, I'm going to think of films I went to see with my. If we're talking about food, the things I used to like cooking for my husband, who was Muslim, and it's like everything to talk about. There is nothing you can talk about in any way that's kind of not going to connect with what's happened to you in your life. So I think that I've been very conscious myself in the last year, working with a lot of Ukrainian students. There's nothing you can talk about that doesn't come back to the war and the current situation. So that, and there's also consciously teaching language to help people talk about things that they've seen or been through or that have been happening. So I hear you completely, and I think, yeah, I mean, the context just dramatically, and it's very, very difficult to. I think you just have to do what you're doing, which is you teach the language to talk about the things that people need to talk about and want to talk about, have to talk about, you know.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's true. So one more thing, we always need to always not make them aware. I always keep saying that language is the means of communication, and this is important, and it depends only on you. What shade would you like to give to this language? It's like cooking. You want to have it salty, peppered, or you would like to have it very sweet. So this same sentence, this same idea can be presented in different way. So that is the moment where you need to understand the peculiarities, and this is the moment what you have to decide for yourself. How would you like it to be served?
And I was going to ask you something just about the kind of importance of English in the context of the war, because I think for me, one thing that I can see very strongly that's changed since 2014 is, I think in 2014 Russia had a much stronger control over the information space globally, and I think since then there's a lot more Ukrainians coming forward on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, through different forms of social media, who are very good speakers of English, very articulate, and very able to counter a lot of the Russian propaganda that's being put out there. And I'm sure that's a conscious thing. You know, I'm sure they've obviously kind of understood, if we're going to fight this thing, we have to also deal with the hybrid. We have to be using English. English is an important part of the way we represent our reality, and we counter what the Russians are telling people about things. So I'm wondering, from your point of view, how you feel about the importance of the time of warfare, or in the context of war.
Well, I think that it's essential. As one of the politicians used to say, that this is like a personal hygiene. You need to have it. And it's true.
Yeah. I wish everyone would say that, because some students who definitely don't. You know, their English was much better than their personal hygiene in some cases.
Well, the thing is that, again, language is always means of communication, and this is the foremost thing. Like, it's not for job, not for personal promotion, for anything. It's just for you to be heard. Also, this is the source of sharing your opinion and ideas. Again, that's not the source, but the means. I'm sorry. It's important because with the advent of war, like, every English-speaking person is either involved into NGOs, like non-governmental organizations, who are helping us a lot, and we're doing grammatically like great things here in Ukraine. But again, it would never have happened if English wasn't there. But for English, we have access to various sources of information, and it's really important to show how you can use the sources and compare those, because again, it's really important that finally in Ukraine, and I think in the world, we started analyzing, not just taking for granted that, okay, that's like Reuters, I believe Reuters. Why on earth would you believe it? I'm not like saying this, it's not right, but go and check on BBC News, go and check on First Source, but it's all English. And that is the top priority now, to have the language to get the genuine, authentic information. On the other hand, luckily, not luckily, but fortunately, Ukrainian language has become a brand. It's great. Ukraine has become brand of bravery, but that is the moment that where the nation awakens. And it's very important for every nation, for every country to represent themselves as brand, as we are all together. If I am abroad, I'm representing my country. And if I don't know the language, how could on earth I do that? If, for example, you go to Italy and you say several words in Italian, Italians are, yes, they are cherishing you then. On the other hand, you cannot know it at that, I don't know, level, not to make mistakes, but English for sure. And then you connect each other with the help of language again. And this is, I might say, like, you know, this tale about Babylon, when everyone was talking the same language. I'm not saying about the end of the story, but I'm saying about the idea.
Yeah.
It's amazing when we understand each other, and so far English is this language.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen in 100 years, but at least English, this is as the second language you need to know after your mother tongue language, and that's important. And finally students understand this. Finally people understand this, because the world is open. Now you can be hired everywhere, especially when you are Ukrainian. Everyone wants to hire you, and we shouldn't neglect that opportunity. It's important, but at the same time, the approaches of teaching, how it used to be taught, needs to be changed. That's important. It needs to be more student-based, because when we talk about different kind of approaches, still in Ukraine there was more teacher-centered than rather student-centered, and that was the problem. And nowadays it's changing, because finally they see the practical application of their knowledge, not just in theory, copy paste and formative assessment. That's not. It's finally a subjective one.
Yeah. So can I ask you next just about your activities over the last year outside of teaching? I mean, one of the that seems to me really fascinating about Ukraine at the moment is the importance of civil society and the way in which people have kind of just organized themselves almost like independently from the government. There's been this kind of grassroots, bottom-up kind of organizing and volunteering, and I know you've been involved in this yourself, yeah?
Yeah, and that was an accident, to be honest, like pure accident. Because I was asked just to do medical interpretation for GRM, a non-governmental American organization, and step by step, I learned everything about tactical medicine. Then they saw me as a good organizer and like managing all of the things which were possible and impossible in Ukraine. And I did it. So, and was English, again, only due to it. We trained more than 2,000 civilian and military in tactical medicine all over Ukraine. And I was honored. And this is what we are continuing doing now, but that's about medical educational program and fellowship into the States. But still, it brought me into absolutely new world. I'm sorry, the connection was really bad. Can you repeat it again, please?
What do you mean by tactical medicine?
Oh, by tactical medicine, for example, nowadays, there is a lot of, like, there used to be a problem. We had territorial defense, we had National Guard in Ukraine, we had Border Guard Academy, but we have never faced such kind of mass scale conflict, like war. And only knowledge which we had, they dated back from 2014 of those brave and courageous soldiers and medical, like it is called military and medical battalions, who were actually like at the front lines.
Okay. And
tactical medicine is absolutely different from medical services which are given at the hospital. So this is the first aid hospital, pre-hospital help. How to apply a tourniquet, how to do the decompression, how to put nasopharyngeal tubes, intraosseous, intravenous access. This is all about how to save life.
Where the whether the injuries have already happened right there. Yeah.
Yes, at the field, those can be like gunshot wounds, blast injuries, chemical weapons, by the way, which was widely spread in Ukraine, unfortunately, and it's true. That's about, for example, applying a tourniquet within first 30 seconds, but that's great. After that, you need to know what to do not to have the soldier lose his extremity. So this is what we were teaching.
Wow.
After that, yeah, and now I know everyone in military all over Ukraine. So if I think of changing the career, I guess I'm gonna go there. Yeah, and that was very vital because back then, like that was the first month of war.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousand soldiers were sent to the front lines was like lacking that knowledge.
Yeah.
And also we were providing medical help, like medical first aid kits. We were sending them to front lines as well. So I was looking and logistically coordinating where to put those. And if I go back then, I understand that I was at home, like physically present at home, maximum of 3 weeks and a half for the period of the 2nd of March to the 31st of August. That time I was all around Ukraine and we were even at front lines as well. So I witnessed Bucha and Irpin within the first week when it opened and revealed to society those mass horrors. And we were assessing hospitals there and helping with the supplies and what to do. And that was crazy, to be honest, because that was another world. I felt myself as the Cinderella or even Alice in the Wonderland, but that was a horrible Wonderland. Since we are teachers, right? We deal with paper, with laptop, with exams, and our biggest threat is not to correspond to the criteria, right, of assessment, for example, or poor pronunciation, or what approach to choose. But we have our cup, we have a comfy office, and this is when you go having your helmet on, you have your ballistic vest on, and you have to interpret, or you have to logistically think how you're going to get that team of doctors from the 30-kilometer area from the front line, like ASAP. Or you have the school at 12 at night, and I need to interpret the surgery of a soldier who will actually be, it is called expectant, like, and American doctors and Ukrainian ones are deciding what painkiller to give him, so he would unfortunately pass away with no pain. And I have to interpret that at night.
Jesus.
And this is what English actually does. It saves lives, or at least isn't the death. And that is the whole new cohort of interpreters. Again, I'm a interpreter by diploma, but medical English, surgery in combat and war English, medical English was not my special subject. And this is what you have to undergo. And this is what actually all of the teachers who are present here, like directly or very closely, are involved into. We are now covering all of the aspects of English. And that is the thing why it should be changed in Ukraine. We have to deal with this.
It's the most powerful argument for change that I think I've ever heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question, I almost feel bad asking you, but I still kind of feel like I ask her. Do you have any family or friends or anyone in Russia that you're still in contact with?
Thank God I'm half Polish Jewish. I have no friends in Russia. Well, but a lot of my friends do. And I had a lot of colleagues in Russia, I used to. And when they started texting and saying like, hey, you are American, I'm sorry, whore, because you are saying that Cambridge exams will not ever exist in Russia because we had like, you know, this like chat fights, like, why would you learn English if the world does not speak to you? Like, and that were my comments, and they started me texting me like, you know, because you didn't know what to do. You were trying to knock the doors, which in fact would never open to you. And I said, like, hey, you were standing in line on my like on the conferences where I was presenting and taking my autograph or asking for advice, and now you're actually saying me that I do not understand what's going on. So luckily, no friends now and no relatives at all, and it's important. But a lot of my close friends, they do have relatives there, and first half a year, they were even not texting. They were not even asking, how are you? And that's horrible. And they were petrified. But after we started to fight back, and like border regions of Russia started somehow feeling some kind of terror, we're not there, as we say. That's not our fault. They started asking, how are you? I really, like after half a year, asking, how are you? Or we are so sorry, but we can do nothing. And for Ukrainian to hear the word we can do nothing is just hearing the same thing, I don't care. And this is how we absolutely tore any connections, relations with this country. It's not country by Putin, it's country with people. And it's horrible because he cannot or his secret services cannot control every text message which you get. This is your personal responsibility, and this is how you actually treat people who are next of kin, right? Who are actually your family. And it's horrible. Family doesn't do like that.
Thank you for answering. How do you feel now when you see people in the West who are on the kind of, you know, we want peace and sort of marching for peace and calling for an end to the war and calling for peace talks and negotiations and all of this kind of thing? How do you as a Ukrainian feel when you see this going on in the West?
It's really painful. On the other hand, you know, we need to be very objective here, because the tendency which is growing in society now is to be very pro-Ukrainian, or to be very anti-Russian, or to fight to the last blood we have, blood drop we have. We should always be very rational, because again, it can also be our weakness. When you are radical, it's horrible. Because again, we always need to remember we represent our country, and our pain is always only our pain. Our war is our war, and we, like, you know, it's very unfair when someone says we want peace. They don't want peace. They want something for themselves because they suffer economical strains. They have price rise. They have a lot of other factors which are socially and economically are really not pleasant for everyone in the world. We understand this, but the problem is Ukraine is not a problem.
So, you know, it's
yeah, and
deeper is all I can tell you.
I do, and I'm sorry, but the thing is that it's not about us. We didn't start the war. Like, actually, we were never even declared a war. Russia has never declared war to us. And very rarely people understand why they did that. And if they go to, like, for example, Geneva conferences, or they go to international legislation and read the difference between declaring a war and actually having special military operation, has a lot of differences. And
as well, there's a huge difference between declaring a war and special military operations. So
yeah,
you know,
and that is the moment. Again, thinking for people is very uncomfortable, and especially when thoughts and information which people get usually contradicts what they used to believe in. And never blame those who do not understand the conflict, or who do not understand the reason of things, the nature of things. It's better to explain, but to explain in the way not to lose your own dignity. And if someone thinks that Russia is right, okay, they are right. I know that they are wrong. and I'm fed up of getting like messages about like my friends or people who I used to know who are killed, and they will never feel this pain because they have never lost anyone. And they say Ukraine is standing for the whole world. Yes, because if we fall, everyone else goes after us, and they will come after each and one, and that's horrible. But when it is 5,000 kilometers away from the house of the person who says he wants peace, I'm not in the right to blame him because he doesn't feel that. Turkey and Syria, they're tremendous. This, I might say, absolutely horrible earthquake. It took lives of more than 40,000 people at once, like once, and they didn't exist. And would any one of you who are here feel their pain?
Yeah.
No. It doesn't matter how good we are, how kind we are, how warm-hearted we are. It didn't happen at our house.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a Ukrainian friend recently, and she was saying that she now realizes how she underestimated or misunderstood Syria. And when the Syrian conflict was first sort of flaring up, and then when Aleppo was being bombed, and, you know, the Russians were doing to Aleppo what they've seen after Mariupol, or what they or at the time, if you're in Ukraine or in England or wherever, it's easy to kind of go, oh, it's something happening among people that I don't know. And I think, you know, that's human nature. And there's a degree to which we all only notice things or are affected by things close to us because of people we know or places we've been to or whatever. You know, I mean, I sometimes feel like I've brought all this luck because I was in Syria 6 months before the war started, and then I was in Donetsk and Crimea a year before the annexation.
Okay, you stay home, okay? Don't travel.
It's just I seem to bring really bad luck to places.
No, you're not. You know this.
I've got kind of two final questions for you, really. The last one, it may seem like a stupid question, but how are you feeling about the coming year?
Well, I was thrilled because I couldn't understand that the year has, like, 2022 is over. And I was thrilled with some positive changes, to be honest, because finally, no matter how horrible it sounds, we got used to that. I understood how to behave, how to earn, how to provide for my business, how to provide for my family. I understood how to help and where I am useful. The biggest horror of war when it starts, you don't know where you belong to.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't understand what to do. Like, is there any meaning, like, in what you're about to do, or is it's already meaningless? You are not in control of your life. And I had PTSD, a very severe PTSD, to be honest, because after seeing what I saw and being at the places and everything else, I just couldn't let myself leave. That's the moment, and that's horrible because you know that you used to be a flourishing person. You, like, the whole world was in front of you. And one day you realize that everything was in vain because someone can come and take it away from you, like, with no reason. So 2023 gave me some hope because I finally look back and understood that 2022 wasn't in vain. For how many things I've done, how many things I did with a lot of my, like, sincere friends and colleagues, with my family, how many changes we've undergone, that we are all alive, we are together, and that's important, that there is still hope. And when I saw how many things we've done, I cannot say that I was proud of myself. I finally was at peace with myself. I wish everyone who is here, and of teachers of Ukraine especially, to be at peace with yourself and allow yourself some weaknesses. And always not wait for something to happen, but actually do something to make it happen. So whenever you have this action, we will survive. We will actually win. Because when we lose hope, nothing is more important than hope.
Yeah, I hear you. It was the last thing out of Pandora. You know, that story.
Yeah.
My daughter's correcting me. Tell me, Maya. The hope never left Pandora's box. Okay, thank you for correcting me.
Mine is amazing. I saw her
You
pictures.
do. Bloody kids.
Yeah.
So just to finish off, Natalia, I just wondered, was there anything else you wanted to share or anything else you wanted to say?
Well, I want to express my sincere gratitude to you for everything you do, and that you make our voices heard. That's important, really. And with that respect, you treat our, I might say, our war, because again, you really devote that much time to that, to spreading the light on not beautiful stories, but on every story. And that you put this all through you. It's very horrible, to be honest. And like, regardless, you are our colleague and mentor, and you inspire us a lot. It's important that you actually are there with us. So thank you so much. And for everyone, I see there Diana and Eugenia, and I see Eva and Anya there, and everyone, and for everyone who will be here and watching it, I heard that master is really very personal. It's not some kind of a role model. It's very important, but I want you to remember that we are teachers, and our duty now to be people, because we can teach not only English, but we can teach being people, and this is what matters a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Natalia, thank you so much for giving up your time on a Sunday to be with, and thank you for everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much again.
All right.
Have a great Sunday to everyone.
All right. Take care and keep in touch. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Right.